don't believe that ADHD is a productivity problem. I believe it is an identity problem. We spend our lives trying to become who they want us to be: focused, easy to manage, organized. And when we do that, we are ignoring who we actually are. So I think what you need is to understand your brain, who you are, and what actually matters to you.
Hi, welcome to the ADHD Social Playbook podcast. I am your host, Caroline Maguire. Before we get into it, this is part 2 of my conversation with ADHD expert Tracy Otsuka. And if you missed part 1, go back and watch part 1. It's fabulous. In part 2, we're going to do a deep dive into ADHD in women, how often we're told to be less and sort of shrink ourselves. And what if ADHD isn't a productivity problem? It's a stop ignoring your needs problem. And I don't know, it's a really interesting question. If we pay attention to our needs, do we stop struggling as much because we create an environment in which we can thrive? I don't know. I would love to hear from you what you think. Let's get into it. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. You have a lot of confidence. And I've really only known Tracy 2.0 post-diagnosis, lots of confidence, right? So many of the women listening to this have been put down for so long that I feel like they don't have as much confidence, and the stool is really prominent. And we've talked about this, you and I, just in our many exchanges, right? What do we say to someone who's at that place other than just follow Tracy and go to all of her communities and get to know her because she'll help you? Like, what do we say to someone who says, I would love that. I am listening to this and I'm so happy, but I don't have any confidence.
I don't believe that ADHD is a productivity problem. I believe it is an identity problem. We spend our lives trying to become who they want us to be: focused, easy to manage, organized. And when we do that, we are ignoring who we actually are. So I really believe that the last thing you need is another hack. I think what you need is to understand your brain, who you are, and what actually matters to you, so that you can, I'm going to say, trust yourself again, but maybe you've never trusted yourself, so it's trust yourself for the first time, and build a life that suits you, not the version of you that makes other people comfortable. Because if you don't know who you are, how can you be confident in who you are? So to me, it's the foundational work, because, and this is all I do, is the foundational work with the women that I work with. And I am telling you, I meet women that come to me and they are so broken. And once they figure out who they are, what's important to them, their values, their strengths, talents that they've built skills around and turned into superpowers, passion in the neighborhood of your purpose. So that sweet spot where they all convene. Once they figure that out, they are in love with themselves and their brains. So isn't that a much better way to get to confidence? And so then once you know that area, with our ADHD brains, we can be all over the place. And that's part of the problem. So we try this, and we try that, and we never kind of, get like one foot in front of the other. And it's
Absolutely.
because we don't know who we are. So once you know that sweet spot, then the goal is to practice getting into action in that sweet spot. Because confidence is not something you're born with. Confidence is doing that thing that scares you, getting through it, and realizing, oh crap, I did it and I didn't die. That is what builds confidence. So, but the problem is you've got to figure out, okay, where do I do those things? I mean, if, for a lot of ADHD women, especially the women who struggle in school, you think about it, they struggle in school not because they don't know how to learn, and always not because they love learning, because we all love learning.
Oh my gosh, we are rabbit hole people.
Yes.
I'm learning about everything. I'm coming back to you to tell you about, everything. I've learned everything out there.
Yeah. And so it's not that they can't learn, it's that they were never taught how to learn in a way that works for their brain. So what ends up happening is, okay, so then maybe they don't go to college. And maybe they do some, they start as a barista. I don't know why I always use this example, but they start as a barista at Starbucks. And they suck at it. Because frankly, they're way too smart for that job, right?
Well, and also, I have no high hand coordination. I can do a lot of things, but I can't do that.
It's just not in their area of interest, and it is boring for them. They're so bright, but it's the only job they can get. And so then they go to that job and they're like, oh my God, I suck at this, and I suck at school. I can't do anything right. They don't even understand how brilliant they are. And one of the things I will say, Caroline, and I say this bar none, no hesitation, I have never met an ADHD woman, and I'm telling you, never, that wasn't brilliant at something. So it's really about finding your area of interest. And once you're interested and you're practicing in that area, you are going to have none, if not very few, of the executive function deficits that you have in other areas, because you're interested. It's not boring. It's not like Groundhog Day where you got to do the same thing, like being a barista at Starbucks. And nothing against baristas at Starbucks at all. But most ADHD women, they know they can do so much more than that. Did I answer your question?
No, you absolutely did. No, because one of the things you and I have gone back and forth again, we leave each other these, very long messages, and I love it, is once you know your values, once you know your strengths, once you know who you are, I say this all the time, and I'm sure some people think, oh, well, that's a little entitled, but I do not buy heads of lettuce, because they will die in the crisper. And it is unfair to the head of lettuce. They want to live and they want someone to eat them.
Yeah.
I buy bag lettuce. I buy lettuce that is already washed. I live next to a farm stand. So it is sort of weird. But here's the thing. I am not that woman. I am not a meal prepper woman. I am not a person who does that stuff. And I'm very comfortable saying that to you. It is not that I think I'm too good. It just doesn't work out. And I'm 50 and it hasn't worked out for 50 years.
Yep.
So let's let it go. And I think that's part of it, is to know yourself and say, I'm a person who needs to be stimulated. I'm not a person who has eye-hand coordination, so I'm not going to be a barista. I was a great waitress, but I was a great waitress because I hustled. I was not a great waitress because I remembered stuff, right? Like, you have to know who you are. And so many times people are trying to tell us to be something we're not. And, they decide we should be something. And, you're a lawyer, which I can picture you being really good at it, right? And you were really good at it. But I know I wouldn't be very good at it. And yet I'm sure if I had been in a different family, people would have pushed me in a certain direction or told me I couldn't do this, and so I had to do that. And, that's part of it, right? Is sort of learning yourself and then saying, I'm a person who, and this is who I am, and that's okay.
Yes. I think so much of it, though, Caroline, especially for women, because what we know is, and this is, people can say, oh, it's just ADHD, it's not important. But women with ADHD, good Lord, how do I phrase this? Women with ADHD have a 24% chance that they are going to attempt suicide. That is 3 times higher than men with ADHD and 8 times higher than women without ADHD. So what could be the difference? I believe it's how we're socialized. We are expected to do 75% of the care tasks, manage the household, do our own careers, manage our children's education, and often take care of our partner. And it is these day-to-day boring tasks that never go away that we suck at. And so I meet women all the time that are, C-suite executives, so successful in their area, brilliant. But then they go home and they feel like they're terrible at home. And so they can't even see their brilliance in their career. And it happens over and over because of the way that we are socialized as women.
It's totally true. It's totally true. And I think I'll be really honest, something recently happened I have to share with everyone because they will understand. For some reason, the school is now calling my husband. Now, there are flaws with this plan because he never, ever answers the phone. And sometimes it's like 4 p.m, the school is closed, and he tells me something that really needed to be taken care of at 9 o'clock in the morning. However, the world has not imploded, right?
Right.
And I don't know why this has happened because the forms are the same forms as last year. So but what's interesting about it is that he is given insight into how much minutia there is. And he has a far more analytical brain. So he actually helps with a lot of that stuff because I get very overwhelmed by details. I am not a detail person. I am this because you took my course. I am a big picture person. And I think it's also that when we lack confidence and when people have told us something, you said something in your book. You said there's potential greatness in the mess, right? And the thing about it is that I think so many people don't trust their gut. And that's one reason I love what you do, because I think so often they know, and in their gut, they're like, I should not be the detail person, or this phone call should not come to me, or, I really am better at this, or, you know what, that person isn't even nice to me. Why am I holding on to this friendship? I mean, that's something I see a lot, people holding on to friendships that I'm like, they're not nice to you. They don't treat you well. They don't have respect for you. And I think that trust your gut is so prominent in your book of trust what you know.
Well, I always say that we have this rudder inside of ourselves, and that rudder is what directs us towards what we should do versus what we really should not waste our time on. And the way we feel what our rudder wants us to do is positive emotion. So if you feel positive emotion around this friend that you've had for 20 years, great. Keep maintaining that friendship. It's important. But if it's constant negative emotion and you feel judged and they're critical and why are you doing this? I also do not believe that all friendships are meant to last for a lifetime. In fact, I think that's very, very rare. But we have this romanticized, idea that, oh, well, if you had a schoolgirl classmate, you've got to stay friends with her until your deathbed. And no, I think friendship can be, seasonal, frankly, that there's a season for this specific friendship. I mean, I don't know about you, but I think back on the friends that I had in college, and then the friends I had in law school, the friends that I had in my first job, the friends that I had when my kids were in Catholic school, and the friends I had when I was in Catholic school. And I remember in Catholic high school never feeling really connected. I had a couple really good friends, but everybody else, I just was like, ugh. And I didn't know why. And it wasn't until we went back to Catholic school with my kids that I was like, wait a minute, this is that same feeling. And then I was diagnosed with ADHD, and I realized that my number one value is to challenge the status quo. Guess what? You don't do that in Catholic school, So it became so clear that, oh, well, that's why. And so I would seek out those women who kind of did that themselves, and I found them, and then we were the troublemakers of the group,
I'm definitely a troublemaker, so I understand that. Well, and I think there's something there too about reinvention. And I think it's important to call out because we have so many women being diagnosed later who are finding out about their ADHD, and they're going to go through this process. They're going to find out who they are. And I've been on this journey.
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying this, like I've been on this journey. I have been there. And then there's a reinvention. Who do you want to be? I don't want to be the person who I was at 20. I want to be this other person who understands their brain. And there's some friends who come along with you, right? You know, there's some friends who you may even not have been closer, but now that you've been through this reinvention and maybe they've had some things happen in their lives. And then there's other people, and you and I were talking about this before we started recording. People want a best friend so desperately. And one of the things I say all the time is stop wanting a best friend. Because if you have one, awesome. But not everybody has a best friend. This one all-encompassing person who is basically a spouse. It's a very romanticized version.
Yeah.
And here's my question too. If I go on this journey of reinvention and I want this best friend, what if you have one and they don't support that journey of reinvention? Because by the way, I've been there too.
Yeah.
Right? I've been there. Caroline is not the same Caroline she was at 20 at all. And some people have come with me and they're like, that's great. I'm so glad. You know, I was like, you know, stand in your power, girl, and you didn't, and now you do. But some people didn't come. They didn't like Caroline 2.0. And my question is does that mean you're a friendship failure? Like, it doesn't to me. It means that you maybe don't have one person, you have many people. And we talked about this. And I don't know, do you think this is part of this journey that people are on?
I absolutely do, because we are the kind of people that love to learn and we love change. And I don't know about you, but I cannot imagine ever riding off into the sunset of retirement. I will always be building and working and learning. And most people don't learn, they don't change after their 24th birthday. And I don't want to be around those kinds of people, especially as I get older and I have less time. I want to be around people who, I don't know where I heard this and I'm going to get it all wrong, but I want to slide in at the end of my life, sweaty, full of dust, maybe a little bit of blood, because I have experienced everything that I could wring out of life, you know? I just don't want to do the safe thing where, okay, once a year we go on vacation and we go to the same place and we see the same people. No, I want to grow and I want to be around people that are doing things, right? That matter. We're so mission driven. I just need more. And I know that that's who I am. And I know so I started the whole reinvention thing in my 50s as well, early. Actually, it was right after I was diagnosed. And what I have noticed is that ADHD women, I get them when they're 50, 60, 70, 80. I get them when they're 22. But they come to me usually like 40 and on, and they'll be like, oh my God, I wasted all this time. It's too late, you know? And I'm like, are you kidding? You're a woman with ADHD. Once we point you to your sweet spot, you will move so quickly. You will learn faster. You will make the changes faster than anybody will. You will be able to reinvent your life. So in a year, I won't even recognize you. As long as you finally figure out, you know, what is that sweet spot? What am I meant to do with my life? And I see it happen over and over again. So what I call like 40s and 50s is baby years for ADHD. We're like infants, you know?
I love that. And by the way, my great-grandmother lived to be 96. My grandmother lived to be 96.
Wow.
My great-grandmother ate chocolate-covered cherries every day. I don't think they were actually allowed in her nursing home, but she did anyway, because she was like the OG rebel. Like, she was like the original, like, I'm going to do what I want. And I think it's so important. And I do think, and again, some people have come with me, and there are people who, you know, they're going to the same place every year for vacation, and they love that I'm like, you know, they're at a swim meet writing my TED Talk. They think I'm hysterical, right? Which is something that I did end up having to do because I had to be at all these kids' activities. So I'm there with, like, you know, research. That's me. I'm there with research spread across my lap. Well, you know, they swim for 30 seconds, Tracy. You have so much time.
Oh my God, do not even talk to me about that. I'm like, oh my God, my kid's drowning, really?
But I think it's really true. And I think also, if you only had a little bit of time left, wouldn't you want to enjoy it?
Yes, yes. And you are absolutely right. So there are going to be people in your life that have been with you that are so in awe, right, of what you're doing. They generate so much positive emotion for you. They are your biggest cheerleaders, yet they don't have any interest in doing what you're doing. But they're so supportive that absolutely those are people that should remain in your life. It's that rudder. If you feel positive emotion, well, then that's a sign I need more of you, or more of that, or more of this. I feel negative emotion, I need less of them and less of this, this, and this. So we all have that, but we need to learn how to trust it.
We do. And you said something earlier I really want to highlight to folks as we're sort of coming to a close. How you feel at the end of being with someone is really important. Mm-hmm. And, I had a marketing person years ago who said to me, I think I have realized, and she was, a millennial or whatever. She was doing the social thing and out there. And she said, I have realized how badly I feel at the end of the night, at the end of the brunch, at the end of the day with certain people. Do I have to stay with them? And I was like, no. Absolutely not. You don't have to have some dramatic breakup, right? I don't understand ghosting. I think it's really mean. I think there's no need to ghost people. You don't have to break up with people. You can just drift apart, and you can have, if people allow you to reframe the friendship so that it's not that you see each other every Saturday, it's that you see each other every quarter. That's great. And people who aren't jealous allow you to make more friends. They say, oh, you're adding to your friendship group. Great, right? And then other people are jealous and they don't want you to. And that's a sign. But at the end of the day, you said this earlier, you should feel good when you're with people.
Absolutely. I mean, that is a sign, again, of what you should be doing more of.
Yes.
And again, our lives are actually relatively short. And so why waste time with people, and I'm even talking like spouses, where every interaction is negative and draining and you're depressed about it. It's like you're taking your time with these people that you could be out there looking for the right people that uplift you and make you feel proud of nobody can make you feel proud of yourself. That has to come from you, but they can be proud for you. And you really figure that out when you write a book, right?
Well, when you write a book, and you said this to me too, when you write a book, you find out who's there for you, because there are people who are so incredibly supportive. And I mean, even supportive in I forgot someone's birthday last week. And then I texted them this week and said, oops, I'm so sorry, because they're one of my closest friends. Mm-hmm. And they were like, oh, don't worry. I know you had a wedding and you're deep into edits. And I was like, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank
you for understanding. That is really big support to me, because they could have said, geez, Caroline, it's the same day as your husband's birthday. Like, come on. I know it's really bad. It's so bad. And it's not about them. It's about my brain. But I think also, there's people who are so supportive, and then there's people that don't really show up for you. And it's scary writing a book.
It is really scary. And yeah, that was a real learning exercise for me. And it allowed me to see, even let's say there was no motive other than they just weren't interested, I'm kind of like, well, if I had a friend that was writing a book, I would read the damn book. I don't care if I'm not interested in the subject. You know what I mean?
I don't care if it was about mermaids and it was for 13-year-olds, I would read the book.
Exactly. Or at least skim it, so that you can say something. There's got to be something nice you can say, especially if this person has spent 2 years writing a book. But
2 years. Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, I think with women too, we are socialized to, everybody's got to be even, and if anybody stands out, men aren't. Anybody stands out, then you kind of want to pull them back so that everybody's, even, which not all women are like that. I'm not saying that at all, but that is how we're socialized. And so I think some women do struggle with, when their friends do things that, now it's never do things that they don't care about doing, because then they're not going to care. It's usually about doing things that they too would like to do, but they don't know how to do it.
Well, and to me, if I had someone do something that I wanted to do, I would be thrilled, because now you know how to do it. And so, it's like anything.
Yes.
You made a back patio. I don't have anyone to do it. I don't know how to do it. I'm thrilled. I'm like over there going, how do you do this? I've always wanted a back patio. So I feel like that is just the way people, if someone is jealous, if someone is not supportive, if someone isn't, and I think that I have a story in this next book where I talk about switching friendship groups and sort of standing in my power and unmasking. And some of it was when I got my very first book deal, which I didn't end up taking. It was from a very small publisher, and I was super excited for Why Will No One Play With Me. They I would say like, oh, I had this great meeting, and they wouldn't acknowledge anything that I would say, this group of women. And I was like, this is weird. Do they hear me? Are we able to hear each other? Like, what's happening? And a life coach said to me, Caroline, that's strange. Like, you're doing the biggest thing you'll ever do, like this is huge. And I ended up, again, there was no drama. I just ended up sort of drifting away from them and finding the people who really support me and who would never write a book themselves, but are first in line at the bookstore.
Right.
But I think that part of this is whatever it is, whether it's a book, whether it's a new job, whether it's going back to college that you didn't finish because you didn't know your ADHD and you couldn't get through the courses and now you can. I think when you do something like that, it's so important. And if people, I want to say this because I know there's people listening who are saying, I have no one who does support me. Then as you're on this journey and you learn to trust your gut, you will find those people. And you will find them. They may not be there now, because I've had moments where they weren't there for me either. And I look around and I'm like, oh dear, like we're in a kettle of fish here. But they will come. And part of it is they will come because you'll know yourself.
Caroline, don't you think a lot of it with us too is we can have these really great friends, but there's this, like, it's never enough, right? If it isn't perfectly aligned with this romanticized version, like I think all the time, I live in the country, and I think all the time of, oh my gosh, these women or families who are so lucky and they live in a cul-de-sac and, like Wisteria Lane or whatever that show was. I can't remember,
Desperate
Housewives. They're all backstabbing each other, but
right.
Really good friends. We're so far apart, we're acres apart from each other, so we can't have that. But like, that's the kind of stuff. Like, you have really great friends, but you're like, well, it could be better,
Well, and I told you, a lot of my clients will say, I am a failure at friendship. Mm-hmm. And the reason they think they're a failure is that they don't have a best friend or they don't have that cul-de-sac. I don't live in a cul-de-sac either, everyone, by the way. I live on a main street because to live in this school district, you can't have it all, right? And so I chose to live on a main street rather than live in a different place where, my children wouldn't have the wonderful schools that they have. But I do sometimes at Halloween or something, I do sometimes think like, oh, I wish I lived on like one of those streets where everybody lives and everybody's, whatever. Yeah. And I grew up in one of those neighborhoods where it was like, a Cape, a Colonial, and a ranch, all in a row, a planned neighborhood. But I also think I also have such nice neighbors. And, that's the thing. You have to reframe and really understand your needs. And if your need is to live in a cul-de-sac, by the way, move, do it. I love it. But I think you also have to reframe things and think, am I focused because of dopamine or because of rejection sensitivity? Am I focused on this thing? And really, it's okay.
And whatever we focus on gets bigger. So why not focus on all the stuff that actually is great and working out, right? Instead of constantly thinking of, oh, well, it could be better. That perfectionistic, trait that we often have.
Yep, or focusing on that self-talk from the past where people have told us it's not okay to live where you live when it really makes you happy, right? And so, yeah, I think that's so important.
It's the rudder.
Tracy, you are so important in my life. I'm so grateful. You have been the one who said, don't let anyone dim your light. And I'm so grateful for that. And your advice is so good on this topic. Where can people find you?
Probably the easiest place to go is just my website, which is tracyotsuka.com. And there you can find links for everything.
And if you just Google ADHD for smart ass women, by the way, which I did yesterday, everything comes up as well. Everything comes up. And you have a tremendous group. Do you want to tell us about the AOK? Because it's pretty fabulous.
Well, I mean, it's exactly what I was saying before. You know, I really believe that ADHD is not it isn't a productivity problem. It's an identity problem. And so what we help our women do, I'm not a traditional ADHD coach. All I work on is the foundational work, figuring out who you are and what you're meant to do in your life. And then once we can figure that out, you know, I have women who say, oh, but I'm stuck and I don't want to go any further. And it's them, right? They don't want to do it because they are afraid that then they're going to actually have to do the thing once they figure out who they really are. And I always say, don't even worry about it. You don't need to finish anything. All you need to do is finish the program. And then if you want to sit there for a year and do exactly what you're doing, you be my guest. Because I know that once we have awareness, once we understand how brilliant our brain is and where our area of brilliance is, we can't help but move forward. Maybe it's in the tiniest little ways, but one little tiny move forward every day in a year is huge. So I just love what I do because I truly, we change lives every day. So thank you for asking.
You are so welcome. And actually, you gave me that advice in terms of friendships and saying to people, you don't have to, all you have to do is buy the book. You don't even have to read it. You can read the first page. And I actually have that in the book. Like, just read this chapter and then you can see. You don't have to commit to anything. You don't have to say you're going to get back out there and make friends. Just agree to read a chapter.
It is about awareness. Once we are aware, we can't not see it, you know? And so then we start making different decisions. And really, isn't that what it's all about, right? Because when you change how you make decisions, you change everything, including your life, right? You can't help but change your life.
Oh, that is a great note to end on. Thank you so much, Tracy. Thank you to everyone. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Please check out Tracy because I have learned so much from her, genuinely legit. I don't think every ADHD book has to be written, by the way. I'm kind of like that. I made skid marks to her book. I just reread it this week, actually, and it is fabulous. I'm going to hold it up. ADHD for Smartass Women. It is a fabulous book. It is an easy read, which as a person with no attention span, I appreciate.
And dyslexia.
And I've listened to it as well in the past. But this week I just read it old school. I read it and it was easy. It was an easy read and fabulous.
Thank you, Caroline.